Hello and welcome to Airheads, a not-so-serious look at the serious business of royal rumours, gossip and gowns. I'm Tom.
And I'm Maeve.
And we're going to start with what everyone comes here to listen to us talk about, climate legislation.
We took a few weeks off and the Queen has been up to her old tricks.
We need to be constantly on it, scrutinising this woman. Give her an inch, she'll take a mile.
You're exactly right, Tom. Because this year, legislation was passed in Scotland that enables the construction of pipelines to heat clusters of homes and businesses using renewable energy rather than from separate fossil fuel boilers. This is called the Heat Networks Bill.
And part of this allows companies and public authorities to compulsorily buy land from landowners in order to build these pipelines. But there's one very notable exception.
Can you guess who it might be?
I'll give you one guess. It's the Queen. In a move that The Guardian describes as at odds with the royal family's public commitment to tackling the climate crisis.
Quite a mild description.
Yeah. The Queen is exempt from this law despite being one of the largest landowners in Scotland.
She secured this exemption through the process known as Queen's Consent. Something we've been talking about a lot this year because The Guardian has had a series of investigations about it. We talked about it in a few episodes, but the kind of big one was one called The Embarrassment of Riches, if you want to go back and hear about how she has finagled things with Queen's consent in the past. But what set this one apart is that this took place this year, whereas the others were more historic examples. But maybe, Tom, you could tell the listeners, give them a little refresher on what is Queen's Consent.
So Queen's Consent is a really old kind of tradition, I guess, whereby the Queen has to give permission for a bill or a law to be debated by MPs if it's going to affect either her in her professional capacity as Queen or in a private capacity as massive wealthy landowner.
Yeah.
So anything that is going to affect her needs her consent. And the problem with that The Guardian has been pointing out is that in order to get her consent, it appears there's often a bit of back and forth about what those laws will contain and whether she can get an exemption from it.
Exactly. And I think, this one is particularly interesting. One, because it's the most recent example that we've heard about of her doing this kind of secret lobbying, but also because it really undermines the so-called activism that other members of the royal family have been doing on the climate crisis. We've talked a lot this year about the launch of Prince William's Earthshot Prize. There was also Prince Charles's Terra Carta, which is supposedly a roadmap to 2030 for businesses to move towards an ambitious and sustainable future. Something that presumably the Queen, his own mother, and probably other members of his family too have no intention of following. Like, we just talked recently about all of the helicopter journeys that members of the royal family had made that were revealed in the Sovereign Grant Report, which we presumed that they were taking between their multiple residences around the UK because they didn't want to use fucking public transport or drive themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they have very swanky cars they could be going around in instead of fucking helicopters. This is just taking the piss on like a whole new level. I mean, we know about royal hypocrisy and their one rule for them, another for us kind of mentality, but this really makes
defining feature of the monarchy.
It really is, and this should make everyone's blood boil because this is the Queen becoming exempt from an actual law in Scotland that is meant to protect the environment for generations to come.
Something that her son and her grandson have insisted is their crucial legacy as royals. And she blazes in here with Queen's consent and completely undoes all of that.
Yeah. As well, one thing I wanted to note here is I've seen people talking online, including in our own Instagram comments, that this is just The Guardian's take on what's happening. But I really feel like people have forgotten what journalism is, because this is part of a wide-reaching investigation based on like research in archives and Freedom of Information Act requests. Like, it's not just an opinion piece. This is like based on actual evidence and reporting.
Yeah, exactly.
And so don't just say, oh, it's a left-wing publication, they want to get rid of the monarchy. Well, this is why they want to get rid of the monarchy, because they are interfering with our laws.
I think we hear this a lot on both sides. You know, when it's a right-wing paper that they're just trying to push their views, when it's a left-wing paper, they're just trying to push their views. But I think in this instance of a heavily reported piece, a heavily reported series of investigations even, this isn't something that you can just dismiss.
Yeah. So this exemption was revealed in documents obtained by Lily Humphreys, who's a Scottish Liberal Democrat researcher, and she accessed it through Freedom of Information laws. But the Scottish Government has blocked the release of other documents that would shed more light on how this exemption was secured by the Queen.
Yeah, and this is the part that made me especially furious. A senior official said the Scottish Government put greater weight on protecting its private discussions with the Queen than on being transparent with the public. They said, there can be no public interest in the disclosure of information which will damage that relationship and disrupt future communications. Additionally, there is a strong public interest in maintaining the long-standing constitutional convention that correspondence between the sovereign and her government is confidential in nature. If the content of these consultations became known, it might serve to undermine the appearance of the political neutrality of the sovereign, and so the rights of the sovereign could not be exercised effectively without this expectation of confidentiality.
There's
Oh my God.
so much to unpack here, and I'll start right away with that. I don't really give a shit about the rights of the sovereign right now, and whether or not she can exercise them.
And it just is baffling to me because it seems very much in the public interest to know in what ways the Queen, the fucking head of state, is making herself exempt from laws that affect all members of that state.
Yeah.
In particular, laws that are being passed that are designed to try to preserve the environment for future generations.
It's fucking bullshit. And also, bullshit is the appearance of political neutrality of the sovereign. Because, I mean, that's all it is, an appearance. Clearly, she's not politically neutral if she's interfering in how bills are put together.
Yeah, I was obsessed with that line. Just like stating it so plainly, like something that we talk about all the time, that it is all about appearances with the royal family, and just straight up saying, we've got to protect the appearance of the political neutrality of the sovereign.
I mean, on the subject of political neutrality, we should also mention here that it's come to light recently that the Tory party chairman, who is Camilla Parker Bowles' nephew, Ben Elliott, he's been accused of making money off his royal connections by arranging a dinner meeting with Prince Charles for a wealthy client of his concierge company called like Quintessentially. And this dinner cost the guy 15 grand or something.
Yeah, I actually thought that was a pretty good price. We did a poll and people thought it was a total ripoff, but I mean, how much do you guys think you should pay to eat the future king?
I mean, according to this guy, it really transformed his career. So it was probably quite cheap for him. But yeah, this like link between the royals, large sums of money, and people closely affiliated to the Tory party.
I did find it interesting that Charles's team told the Sunday Telegraph that he believes he has become collateral damage in a dispute within the Tory party over this guy Ben Elliott's chairmanship.
Right.
So seems like things aren't as cozy as we usually expect between the royals and the Conservative Party.
Probably because they keep getting caught doing dodgy deals.
Let's go back to Queen's consent, though.
Yeah, The Guardian revealed that their investigation has identified at least 67 instances of the Queen's meddling in Scottish legislation since 1999. And the Scottish Health Secretary, Hamza Yousaf, has since said that the Scottish Government could ask the Queen for permission to publish her correspondence if there was sufficient public and political demand to do so. I think it's very unlikely, though, that the Queen's officials would agree to that level of transparency.
Can you imagine asking the Queen, can you publish her private correspondence? It's going to be a flat no. And I also think lots of fucking idiots around the UK would be like, but that's private correspondence. We shouldn't be privy to any of that.
I mean, and if it wasn't about becoming exempt from laws that would, affect everybody else, I would probably agree. But even the fact that this was raised, I think, seems like a very small step in the right direction. Because other abuses of the Queen's consent procedure, like we mentioned, and that The Guardian has reported about, they happened decades ago. And they don't really hit as hard, I don't think, as something that happened this year. And it does seem like now there's a slightly different reaction to this in Scotland than there has been to these other reports.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that it relates to the climate crisis, because the other things we talked about were, well, one of them's to do with racial discrimination laws.
Yeah, which, you know, also people should care a lot about right now and at all times. But I do think there was like a feeling with those that like, oh, this was like in the 60s and 70s in Buckingham Palace. You'd expect them to be racist and discriminatory.
And others were to do with like agricultural laws and stuff like that, like, you know, might not be that interesting to the average reader or casual observer of the royal family. Whereas something like climate change, which, as we've said, has become a hallmark for certain members, the most prominent members of the royal family, I think that could be a factor in why this is being taken more seriously.
And to be clear, all of these things should be taken incredibly seriously, which is why we've talked about all of these reports. But it's just good to see that finally one seems to be catching public attention in a different way.
It's still very minor public attention.
That's true, yeah. But a Scottish Parliament spokesperson has said, applying Crown consent is the responsibility of ministers, but Holyrood, which is the Scottish Government, would review its handling of such bills.
She said, the Parliament will give consideration to how to make the signifying of Crown consent more transparent. And it's thought that this could involve a new requirement that ministers or the Parliament would issue a declaration before a bill is debated that it has been amended in consultation with the Queen's officials or her lawyers.
Yes, do this.
Why not do that always?
Yeah,
it's just
great idea.
It's just another example of how the royals make things like this deliberately opaque.
Yeah, because it would be very embarrassing for them, presumably, to have this said in front of every bill that they've meddled in, and maybe have the paragraph highlighted where they put in, but not for the Queen. Not for the Queen, though. But yeah, this is a first step, and then the next step would be just to stop sending her the bills and just debate them without her interference.
The next story I want to talk about is the milestone birthday of Meghan Markle, who turned 40 this week.
Happy birthday, Meghan.
Happy birthday, Meghan.
And it was marked with a new royal Instagram strategy where they all used Instagram stories to congratulate her on the day rather than main feed posts.
I think everyone knows what that means, but just in case you're not on Instagram, Instagram stories disappear after 24 hours.
Yeah.
And you can turn off messages so that people can't reply to you. I think this definitely felt like a new strategy, a very coordinated strategy. I was very interested in why they went for stories rather than the feed. Obviously, last year they had the feed posts. And I think, you know, it's not really a case of not wanting to have a permanent post, because they did also tweet these messages. And those tweets, you know, they didn't delete those after 24 hours.
Yeah.
So my assumption would be that it has to do with the, like, fucking insane, ugly, racist comments that they get anytime there's any post about Meghan. And, you know, anytime there's really any post about anything.
Yeah.
This is on the royal family, Clarence House, and Kensington Palace, Duke and Duchess of Cambridge accounts. And I think it showed to me that clearly the royals are aware of this problem with the racist comments, and they're obviously having some kind of discussions about it, but for some reason they don't want to just restrict comments or turn off comments on their posts. And I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if it's like a kind of cowardly hedging their bets kind of thing. Like, I mean, they must know that there's a big crossover between people who are diehard monarchists in this country and people who are, like, racists. So they maybe don't want to alienate that fan base by doing something which is such a signpost of, like, we don't want any more racist comments. Is it standing too much with Meghan if they turn comments off? Is that their worry?
Jesus Christ, I think they've got bigger problems if that's something they're worried about. Offending the racists. My God. I have to talk, though, about the main feed post that Clarence House did share that day, which
incredible,
absolutely blew my mind. A whole post about how this day, Meghan's birthday, the 4th of August, was also the birthday of the Queen Mum.
And you would be forgiven for thinking that it was also a milestone birthday for the Queen Mum.
Which you thought, you were like, oh, well, it's, you know, a significant birthday. No, it's not. She would have been 121. He can't fucking do a feed post for his own daughter-in-law, but he can do one for a dead woman. Like, that just absolutely cracked me up.
Well, I mean, it's like when they put in, like, the Queen Mum's outfits in the Diana wedding dress exhibition. Like, you know, stop trying to make the Queen Mum happen. People aren't as interested as you think they are.
Especially not on Instagram.
But to mark the date, the Archwell website was updated with a new video. It was one starring Meghan alongside none other than Melissa McCarthy.
Huge Melissa McCarthy fan.
Oh,
so
yeah.
are you.
Yeah.
I was delighted that she had Melissa McCarthy in this video. Melissa McCarthy was very funny.
Yeah, it was
Very fun. Funny costumes, funny jokes, funny hats.
a lot of good hat work, as she remarked herself in the blooper reel at the end. But yeah, a lot of good jokes about suits, which we loved, the matching tattoo stuff, joke about a yacht, which we'll get onto later. But we got to see the return of one of our favourite Meghans, which is actor Meghan. It was like a bit cringy, but I mean, possibly a victim of the kind of Zoom effect when you see these kind of like Zoom reunions and things of casts of...
I know Megan's not a comedian, but I think acting with a comedian really shows up how much more natural Melissa McCarthy's comic timing is.
Yeah.
But listen, I appreciated the effort. And I think it also shows that Harry and Meghan seem to have learned that it's worth getting actual comedians to be in these kind of videos because that was so effective with Harry on James Corden's show.
Yeah.
That made that such a success compared to when Harry did that video with Ed Sheeran, which was really awkward.
So horrible.
And not really funny at all. Speaking of Harry, though, at the end of this video with Meghan and Melissa McCarthy, there was a sort of blooper reel section, as you mentioned, which featured Harry juggling outside the window, doing his little bit.
To much hilarity. Meghan loved it. I mean, you know, we do know that anything like this, that royals or, you know, celebrities in general, when they put something like this together, it's very managed, it's very planned, it's designed to create a certain response. And I think even if we find it like a bit cringy, we should give props to them for doing it very well. I thought it was very well produced, very slick, and I did laugh.
You did laugh.
Yeah.
My favourite guest star was Guy the Beagle.
Oh, so cute.
So cute, sitting on the little striped cushion next to Meghan.
Yeah, having a sleep or just generally relaxing.
So cute. But the main purpose of this video was to announce a new initiative called 40 by 40. And that involves Meghan asking 40 of her friends to help what they're calling a global effort by contributing 40 minutes of their time to mentor women re-entering the workforce.
And as well as the video, Meghan wrote a little note for the website which introduced the project, and it's so Meghan. I'm sure you've probably already read it, but if you haven't, go and have a look. It starts, "In reflecting on my 40th birthday and the many things I'm grateful for, I'm struck that time is among our greatest and most essential gifts. Time with our loved ones, time doing the things we love, time spent learning, laughing, growing, and the sacred time we have on this earth." I mean, that whole note, you can just hear it exactly in her voice.
You can.
Yeah. But it's also very Meghan in another way in that it's actually hyperlinked to the research that she mentions about the number of women who've lost jobs due to COVID in the last 2 years. So it is backed up with the stats, which is great. And
this range of 40 mentors, very diverse. I thought we could talk about some of the more, well, the big names among these 40 mentors, including Melissa McCarthy, Hillary Clinton, Adele. Not sure what Adele could mentor you on, but exciting to have Adele.
You've also got Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, Stella McCartney,
the fashion designer,
Gloria Steinem, the bracelet designer. I know Gloria Steinem isn't just a bracelet designer. But also Amanda Gorman, who's the poet who performed her poem at Joe Biden's inauguration.
There were also, though, a lot of maybe lesser well-known people in various fields. There was the chef and restaurateur Jose Andres, the founder of World Central Kitchen that Harry and Meghan have worked with. There was Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, who's Surgeon General of California and a pediatrician who has done a lot of work linking childhood trauma and stress with adverse effects later in life.
Very interesting work.
Early years type of work.
And, of course, Princess Eugenie.
I was surprised by this. Princess Eugenie shared on her Instagram stories the graphic for the 40 by 40 and said, to celebrate dear Meghan's 40th birthday, I'm contributing 40 minutes of mentorship to support women re-entering the workforce. And I just have a lot of questions about this. Yeah. I mean, I do think it's very funny, and I know people will get annoyed about this, but to have Meghan, a woman who doesn't really work, being an advisor on work, and then to get Eugenie, a woman who also doesn't really work, to mentor someone on work. But it also made me wonder, did she ask Kate?
I mean, I think when you've got Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, who clearly has such incredible credentials in the work of like early childhood development, I think asking Kate would be a little bit redundant, even though she is obviously an expert and the head of the Princess Catherine Centre for Early Years Research, whatever it is. Like, what would be the point of having Kate on board? But was she pissed off that they didn't ask her? Or did she refuse to do it?
And why was Eugenie able to do it and Kate didn't?
I know, a lot of questions. I mean, yeah, I agree with you that I'm not entirely sure what some of these like celebrity mentors would contribute in a 40-minute session beyond like these are the email addresses of some people who could like, you know, really move you along. But like, I think the benefit of something like this is that it's like supposed to be encouraging lots of other people to give 40 minutes of their time. So presumably people in more kind of quote unquote normal jobs or fields where they could like give actually useful advice, and having all these celebrities on board gets that message out to more people, gets more attention on it, I suppose.
Yeah, like that's what I was saying to you the other day, that I think the celebrities are the way of bringing eyeballs to this.
Yeah.
Even if they're not really the most valuable contributors as mentors. I am interested in how useful people would find this kind of mentorship. I sort of wondered, was the 40 minutes thing more of a branding thing hooked on Meghan turning 40 than the amount of time that might make a tangible difference for somebody?
I'm not quite sure what you get out of one mentoring session, no matter how long it is. I feel like the ability to like check back in with people is really important because, you know, getting back into work or getting further along in a career path or whatever it is a long-term project. It's not like a 40 minutes, it's not an hour and a half, it's not even like a day, you know, thing. So that's why I'm kind of hoping that with it having been opened up to a lot more people than just a list of 40 celebrities, that people can get a lot out of it. Like, it's a, you know, this is a net positive thing, and I'm hoping that a lot of people benefit from it.
Yeah, and it's obviously a good thing for people to be talking about support for women re-entering the workforce.
And, I mean, like the vaccine advocacy initiative that they were talking about on Archewell earlier in the year, this is like another project that is building on work that's already being done. Like, they mention on the Archewell site that they've partnered with mentorship programs and organisations that include SmartWorks, which, you know, Meghan's worked with since she married Harry, and YWCA and LA Works as well, which I think are more US focused.
We've got to talk about Meghan's outfit though. If we move into our Fit for a Queen segment, Meghan in her signature neutrals, we got a white ribbed tank top. Got to be the first time we've seen a member of the royal family doing some kind of work in a ribbed tank top, no?
Yeah, very relaxed and paired with a cream wrap cardigan and white trousers.
just the most impractical outfit ever, the most like rich lady outfit you could possibly imagine. But all of these items were very expensive looking, but fairly anonymous. So the focus was really on her new necklaces.
They are by LA-based jewelry designer Logan Hollowell. They're very expensive, and they are in the shape of zodiac constellations. So she's wearing the Gemini constellation for Lily, and the Taurus constellation for me. And Archie as well, I suppose.
I did think they were pretty cool. It was quite a lot going on with two at the same time. But I mean, I would like one. If I had £1,400, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think aesthetically one would be nicer, but I think like as a mum you can't really just pick one child's constellation to wear. So I get why she wore both, and it was like a cute gesture.
Yeah, and obviously she looked amazing. She looked incredibly rich, as I was saying, glowing with health and wealth. And I did want to talk a little bit about the decor of this room, given that people have talked so much about how styled it is, eerily colour matched to her own outfit. Everything's cream, everything's shades of neutrals. Some of the notable items to me were the Hermes blanket.
Money, money, money.
That she has a stack of 11 copies of her book, The Bench. And then she's propped up her laptop on 6 books from the Taschen Architecture series.
Oh my god.
I mean, what use are the Taschen Architecture series of books other than as a prop for your laptop? Also loved the cluster of quartz healing crystals next to the books.
Yeah.
And that she, at one point in the video, was holding a teacup and saucer from Burley Pottery in the black regal peacock design.
I think having the teacup and the crystals together really represents, like, Meghan and Harry's lifestyle, doesn't it?
I'd agree with you there, Tom.
But we should move on to quote of the week. You may or may not have noticed that there was a big deal made this week of Jack Brooksbank, Princess Eugenie's husband, being photographed on a boat with bikini-clad women, one of whom was topless.
People lost their heads over this.
Absolutely went wild. Royal Watch has gone wild.
I was shocked when I saw them, and then I read the story in The Sun, and it was like Princess Eugenie was believed to also be on the trip but did not join him on the boat, at which point I was like, okay, this is a non-story.
Yeah. There was so much like, how could he do this to her? And like people wondering very vocally online about whether he's a cheater, which I thought was like, yeah, once you know that she's nearby.
And so many people being like, I would have expected this from Edo Mapelli Mozzi. Leave Edo out of this. How do you even know either of these totally forgettable men's personalities well enough to judge which of them would be a cheater?
Because I'd believe it of someone with an Italian sounding name, but not a British gentleman.
Quote of the week, though. I was obsessed with Fergie. Sarah Ferguson, Fergie, is doing a press tour for her book,
Her Heart for a Compass,
which just came out. And quote of the week was her leaping to Jack's defense during an interview on The One Show. Here, you do it.
She said, Jack, who was on the front page, is a man of such integrity. He's just one of my most favourite people. I call him James Bond, actually.
This was the most incredible way to defend your son-in-law who's been accused of cheating by likening him to probably the most famous womanizer in popular culture.
A man who either kills or sleeps with, or both, every bikini-clad woman that he meets.
She also said, he works as an ambassador for Casamigos and he was doing his job. And so I think it's really important that we clarify that for Jack's sake. Which was also hilarious to me because in these pictures they weren't even drinking Casamigos.
Which would be the only job he'd have.
I know, it's like, okay, go out there and be pictured, you like very normal looking man, drinking some Casamigos surrounded by like sexy babes. But they couldn't even get that right.
You forgot the Casamigos.
Yeah. Do you think George Clooney was pissed off about that?
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I mean, also very funny the idea that this is his job. This is his job. This is his work. And he takes his work seriously.
There was another Fergie item I wanted to mention because she gave an interview to the Financial Times, also part of this press tour, in which she spoke a little bit about Prince Andrew and the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And she describes herself and Andrew as the happiest divorced couple in the world. And then she actually brings up the Epstein mess herself. She says of Andrew, it's been very challenging for him. I want him to come through this. I want him to win.
Oh my God.
Also just gives the interviewer an in to ask about Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, she says that she believes Andrew's version that he never saw anything untoward 100%. And she says, no question, I know everything about him. I think he's an extraordinary person. And then you could come with, why aren't you remarried? Because we don't believe... We support each other like pillars of strength with the honour and integrity of truth. So she kind of starts out being like intelligible and then devolves into like this kind of classic Fergie word salad.
But then the interviewer tries to go back to the topic and asks if she thinks Andrew's Newsnight interview was a good idea, and she says, drop it. I'm legally not allowed to.
Ooh. Why aren't you allowed to, Fergie? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, and she says some other things that I couldn't really make sense of, so I didn't want to mention them in case I sort of put the wrong context on them. But it was quite interesting that she talked about this at all.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that she did, even though, you know...
What she said is, like, really shit.
First in line, I'm going to say it's Meghan.
Yeah, because she's leading the way in getting back into the workplace because she's back to acting alongside Melissa McCarthy.
As a woman who left the workplace, she is now a thought leader on women at work. I do obviously hope that she can help other women re-enter the workforce. And I just thought it was very amusing that whole video seemed like perfectly designed to piss off the people who criticize her, with her in her luxurious home, in her luxurious clothes, surrounded by her luxurious furnishings, talking to celebrities, totally at ease.
Yeah. I mean, there's no better way, really, to celebrate a milestone birthday than by giving your haters the finger. Flipping them the bird, as we say here.
And all the better if the bird is covered in diamonds. Gold and diamond rings.
Constellation of diamonds. But next episode, we were thinking that we'd do a TV/book club because we just finished watching Netflix's Young Royals, and that's like basically all we want to talk about.
Yeah, we would recommend definitely watching it. We're going to be spoiling it. It's 6 episodes, like 40 minutes each, and it's about the younger son of the Queen of Sweden who goes to an elite boarding school and falls in love with another boy who is a socialist.
Yeah.
And an anti-monarchist.
It's really, really good. We were absolutely obsessed with it. So, yeah, catch up with that and we'll talk about it in the next episode. We might also talk about Fergie's book.
We're going to try 100 pages. And if at that point it's intolerable, we're going to shelve it. But we'll talk about those 100 pages, if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be a case of us reading it so you don't have to.
If you did read it, though, let us know what you thought.
Yeah. Don't worry about spoiling it.
And, you know, it would be good if we got another thing to round it out with 3. So if there is a third TV show or book or film or whatever that you guys would like to hear about, please let us know.
You could leave us a 5-star review with your recommendation of something for us to cover.
Please do. And until next time, thank you so much for listening and have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.
Like when you say no yacht, do you mean 0 yachts?